So you're arguing with somebody on the internet, right? And they find your 9-year-old profile picture and now you are getting absolutely cooked. Do you delete your entire social media presence and begin your new life as a mountain nomad? You should probably consider that, but you should also consider this. The criticism you're getting doesn't actually matter. See, living in the information age means that people have access to so much information and stimulus that they barely even register your presence or individuality, let alone remember it long term. It becomes really easy to criticize somebody over the internet because you don't see them as an actual person. They're really just a piece of data that you happen to think has a weird hairline. I say all of that to say this. One of the worst things you can do in modern society is take criticism too personally because it's so easy to criticize people. The way I see it, all criticism falls into one of two categories. You've got feel-good criticism and constructive criticism. Feel-good criticism is what we do to make ourselves feel better, like pointing out that Jason Momoa has a lazy eye or that Kim Kardashian is an objectively useless human. By pointing out somebody else's flaws, we put ourselves above them and make ourselves feel better. But here's the thing, me pointing out that Jason Momoa has a lazy eye isn't going to diminish his attractiveness or his social standing, and it's definitely not going to take money out of his bank account. Feel-good criticism is meant entirely to make the criticizer feel better about themselves. For some people, it's enough to just say it, and other people want to see folks jump on the bandwagon with them. They get excited about other people having the same opinion. So for instance, when I pointed out that Jason Momoa has a lazy eye and my wife agreed with me, that made me feel good. The point isn't really to break that person, hurt their feelings, or ruin their life. It's to get that little dopamine hit that you get from being a dick to somebody and getting away with it. And it's even better if somebody jumps on the bandwagon to back you up. What the criticism isn't actually about though is you. You might be the object of it, but it's not really directed at affecting you. This same type of criticism happens in the workplace too. In fact, gossip and drama are kind of the lifeblood of a lot of workplaces, at least in my experience. People constantly circulate criticism of coworkers, leaders, customers, like their lives depend on it. Mentioning to your coworker that you think the new guy is a bit of a brown-noser and them agreeing with you gives you a little shot of validation, and suddenly it's more about how that criticism made you feel than it is about what it accomplished. But I can tell you from experience that pointing out that somebody's a brown-noser doesn't necessarily affect their chances of getting a promotion anyway. It's important to be aware that oftentimes when somebody's criticizing you, they're probably just trying to make themselves feel better, and it's not necessarily something you should be looking too much into. With that being said though, you should be on the lookout for patterns. If you've heard more than once that the way you speak is annoying or the way you walk is funny, there might be some truth to it, even though those individual criticisms didn't really mean that much. And if it's something you can change, then look at it as an opportunity moving forward to refine the way that you present yourself and make better first impressions moving forward. Now, before I get into constructive criticism, I do want to take a break to quickly shill the rest of my content. My goal as a content creator is to help people grow as leaders without all the cringy self-help stuff that permeates this industry. Even if you aren't in a traditional leadership role, you can still leverage leadership concepts to get ahead in your personal and professional life. If the idea of leveraging leadership concepts in your real day-to-day life sparks your interest, then go ahead and check out the rest of my content. And if my content speaks to you, go ahead and drop subscription. Heck, maybe even consider liking and commenting on some of my videos so we can have a conversation. Any level of engagement really helps me out as a small YouTuber, and hopefully it can help you as a leader. Alright, now that that's out of the way, on to constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is what you'd get from a family member, a friend, or a coworker that wants to see you succeed. The key difference here is that whoever's criticizing you expects better of you and has your best interests at heart, or at least the best interest of your organization at heart. And the thing is, by rejecting constructive criticism, you're throwing away some of the best growth opportunities you'll ever have in this life. If you can find somebody who's willing to point out your flaws and criticize you for your own good, you need to keep that person close. It's really difficult, especially today, to summon up the courage to call out one of your friends or coworkers when they're in the wrong. It's just as hard to see and acknowledge your own shortcomings. Whether we realize it or not, we rely on the feedback of others to see what we're doing wrong and refine ourselves. Most of us have been accepting and implementing feedback since we were in kindergarten. When little Susie told you that your hair looked stupid, it probably put a bug in your ear to change things up. In the same vein, if a coworker approached you and told you that the way you delivered your presentation was a little bit condescending, you might get offended in the short term, but you're probably going to pay attention to that feedback the next time you present something. These are normal social interactions that have been happening for our entire lives that help us develop and refine ourselves as people. The key to dealing with constructive criticism is minimizing that offended feeling and focusing on the action item, the area for improvement that criticism highlighted. By stepping back back and detaching and taking the message on board, you're able to laser focus on the benefit and apply the feedback moving forward. So for instance, a few years ago I was teaching a few classes and my boss came up to me and basically told me that the way I presented came off condescending because I blew past certain information that I thought everybody just knew. Now admittedly, I was a little butthurt that he called me condescending, but I realized that I had been projecting my experience onto people that hadn't had the opportunity to gain that experience yet. By taking that constructive criticism on board, I was able to refine my teaching style and put out better qualified individuals moving forward. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this isn't always the case. Sometimes I still get offended about criticism, but when I can separate my feelings from the issue, I can usually find feedback to implement moving forward. Long story short, dealing with criticism, good or bad, is really about finding a way that that criticism can be turned into a lesson. And if you can't draw any sort of a lesson out of the criticism, then it was probably something said just to make the other person feel better about themselves, and you shouldn't let it get under your skin. So anyway, that's all I have for you today, leaders. If you stuck around this long, you probably liked something that I had to say, so go ahead and hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more No Bull Leadership.